Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, all of you fans here on Rare Elvis Photos. This is an interview that Andy Warhol gave about Priscilla Presley on February 18th, 2015. A lot of you have not seen this or read this, and of course, let's just see what Priscilla has to say about Elvis, as well as her love for Michael Edwards. That's the most telling thing, is that while I was reading this article, this is a different Priscilla than the Priscilla that goes around and tours nowadays about her love for Elvis and how they were going to be back together and all that stuff. So earlier this month, the New York Times announced that Graceland, Elvis Presley's estate that opened to the public back in 1982, they will establish a second location in Las Vegas. The announcement will be made official later this month through the opening of this museum, set to include an exhibition space and live performance, is long overdue. Having played 837 performances in Las Vegas, also known as Sin City, there are no more places more crucial to Elvis's career. This week we highlight an interview with his ex-wife Priscilla Presley from our December 1979 issue. Priscilla had been with Elvis since she was 14, and although she left him before his death in 77, the actress would have known Graceland just as well as the king himself. Not really. At the time of this conversation, Priscilla had fallen deeply in love with male model Michael Edwards. She resolved to not discuss Elvis during the interview because, once again, Elvis is not important anymore. That's why. But it was impossible, or she couldn't profit enough off of it. But it was impossible to ignore his legacy when speaking about topics like hair products, travel, and caviar. So here is the interview. Priscilla Presley by Andy Warhol. Part 1. Tuesday, October 16, 1979 at 9 p.m. Quo Vadis, I guess, Andy Warhol, Bob Colacello, and actress fashion plate Janet Villela are dining with Presley and her steady beau, Michael Edwards, a major male model. Priscilla, the ex-wife of the greatest legend in the history of rock and roll, in town to promote Wella hair products, for which she has just become their $1 million a year spokesperson. That didn't last very long. They didn't make any money off the product, so they fired her. She has let it be known in advance through PR people that the purpose of this interview is not to talk about Elvis. But whatever tension and restriction that is created is soon gone as Priscilla begins to speak in a voice as beautiful as her face. Andy Warhol says, "Are you doing any movies?" Priscilla Presley said, "Not right now. I've been offered..." Not right now. I've been offered quite a few things. For now, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I like commercials, and I like advertising. It's just in the process of starting on the Wella commercials. I like working with Wella because it's a family-owned corporation. Now, Bob Colacello asks, why are they named Wella? Presley says, no, the family is named Margelli, and they're from Germany. They don't work out of Germany, though. They have a plant in Englewood, New Jersey. So I want to ask everybody to answer in the comments. Have you guys heard of Wella products besides Priscilla? Did you ever buy any Wella products? Janet Villela says, where do you live? Presley says, Los Angeles. I'm thinking seriously about moving, though, because I've fallen in love with New York. And to the best of my knowledge, she never moved to New York. Andy Warhol says, isn't it the best, especially at this time of year? Who's been to New York? Please leave a comment about that, maybe what your favorite part of New York was. I've been to New York City. I've been to Niagara Falls on the New York side. Been to quite a few places up there. And New York City is very busy. I kind of enjoyed it, but at the same time, in no way would I like to live in New York City or Rochester or Buffalo, in those areas. So Presley says, I know, it's unbelievable. Every time we come here, we can't leave. Michael Edwards says, I really think New York is the heartbeat of the world. Presley says, we're very good friends with your friend, Joan Quinn, in Los Angeles, Andy. I love that streak in her hair. Every time I see her, it's a different color. Warhol says, is it pink or purple now? Villela says, imagine what Wella would do with her. Yeah, whatever. Presley says, I don't know. And I'm going to stop saying Presley. I'm just going to say Priscilla. because that's really how we should know her, Priscilla or Prissy. I don't know. They're having enough trouble with me as it is. My hair turned green at one point from the chlorine in our swimming pool, and I went through 3 days of changing it back to blonde. I used all the Wello products in it, and I must say they really work. Now I have to swim with a bathing cap at all times. Now stay tuned. There is going to be conversation about Elvis in here, and including with Michael Edwards there. Warhol says, I always thought you had darker hair. Priscilla says, yes, I used to have black hair. I've gone through the whole spectrum of colors. I've been blonde about 5 years, and I can honestly say that I think that blondes have more fun. Fun to change your hair color. Your personality changes right along with it. Villela says, you have a child, don't you? Priscilla says, yes, I have a little girl. She's 11 years old. Colacella, 11? Wow, you must have been so young. You only look about 21 years old now. Priscilla says, I do? That's wonderful. Edward says, you're supposed to say, neat. Huh. I mean, that's kind of a dopey thing to say. I mean, anyways, I don't like Mike Edwards. So let's just go on here. Priscilla says, I try to keep things light. I guess you could say that's my secret. Michael Edwards says, we've been exercising together about a year now. You know, real exercises, as opposed to what, physical in the bedroom? Colacella says, do you live together? Michael says, yes, and you know, the movie magazines know more about our daily life than we do. Colacella says, what agency are you with, Michael? Edward says, Ford. Colacello asks, how do you feel when you see your pictures everywhere you go? And Michael Edwards says, I don't look at it. Priscilla says, he never does look at his pictures. I'm the one that goes through them. I'm the one that goes through all of the magazines and newspapers saying, ooh, look at your pictures, Michael. He's in all the milk ads and Johnson's baby oil. Colacella says, what do you do for them? Oil a baby? Well, you know, that's a ill-timed comment based upon what we know about his obsession with Lisa Marie and, you know, the alleged abuse that occurred that Priscilla and Lisa really didn't talk about much. Edward says, no, I sit on the beach with a suntan. Warhol says, you look like the kind of people that they're using in movies now. Michael actually looks like a better version of Richard Gere. Isn't that interesting? Because Priscilla was rumored to have an affair with Richard Gere. Who knows? Maybe that led to her pursuing Richard Gere, because that's just something I could see Priscilla doing. Villela says, where are you from, Priscilla? California? And Priscilla says, I was born in Brooklyn. But with my father being in the Air Force, I traveled all around all my life. I think that's why it's hard for me to confine myself to one place. I love to travel. That's another reason I love being with Wella. I even enjoy going to all the places you wouldn't ordinarily get to, like Michigan. Really? Okay. Michigan's got some pretty places. Warhol says, do you have any memories of Brooklyn? Priscilla says, no, actually I was raised mostly in Connecticut. Michael Edwards interjects, do you have any memories of Connecticut? And Warhol says, you can do the interview with each other. You're great. Edwards says, no, really. We talk a lot, but this is one thing that never came up. Connecticut. This could be something important. How long were you in Connecticut? Priscilla says, well, most of my childhood. I love it. I love the East Coast. I love it for the change of seasons. Now, if you end up watching my series that is partially out and it's going to be re-released again, which is Priscilla Presley and All of Her Lovers Before Elvis, this is important because Michael basically says that he knew that she was very secretive. So Warhol says, I saw the best movie recently, The Europeans. Actually, the best thing about it was the scenery, which was all red and yellow trees changing color and people riding around in buggies. Priscilla says, I'm so glad that the movies are finally rediscovering romance. If I were to do a movie that is the only type of role I can see myself playing, very romantic. Edward says, we're more or less been looking for a project to work on together, but we're going to wait for just the right thing to come along. Colacella says, would you say you're just using the advertising thing to make yourself known better? And Priscilla says, well, that's the one question that's most frequently asked, and the answer is no. I'm working because I want to work. I want to do something that I enjoy. Edward says, I ask her the same question. Priscilla says, I believe in what I'm doing now. I'm not looking for fame, fortune, or stardom. I just like the feeling as though I'm doing something constructive. For the past 2 years, I haven't done much of anything, and before that, I was co-owner of Biss and Bow, obviously, a little boutique. So after I sold the boutique, now we've got to remember that Priscilla ran out of all of that money, that first $100,000 that Elvis gave her, because the boutique was not successful. So I don't think she sold it. I think what happened was she just had to get the heck out of there because she was losing money because nobody wanted to buy anything that Priscilla Bouillot was selling. So Colicella says, Diana Freeland told that in all of the World War II newsreels, there was always a segment of Marlene Dietrich watching her hair with Wella while touring with the troops. So it must be good stuff. Okay, well then Wella's pretty well known. It is good stuff and it's German, just like Marlene. What have you been doing since you've been in New York? Asked Andy Warhol. Michael Edwards says, well, we've been devoting so much time to working that we really haven't been able to do much else. Priscilla then says, what do you recommend? We like to see the stars. Well, Andy Warhol, of course, says, you're the stars. Of course, you know that both Michael Edwards and Priscilla Presley ate that up. So Warhol continues, we can take you later to meet Godunov, the Russian ballet star defector at Regine's. Priscilla says that would be great. So Presley and Edwards in French, Warhol and Colicella in American, and Villela in Italian. So I don't really know what that says in the interview, because Priscilla certainly didn't speak French. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe y'all know what that means. So Colicella says, I think Las Vegas is the most evil place in America. Priscilla says, well, I gambled once and lost almost $2,000 on Baccarat, which unfortunately is my favorite game, or one of my favorite. I just love the feeling of playing, but I hate losing. I feel so stupid. Colicella says, everyone in Las Vegas looks so poor. All of the gamblers' wives stand behind them, thinking about another mortgage on the house. Well, that's true. That's a true statement. You don't make money going to Las Vegas. Nobody wins. That's why Las Vegas has grown to what it's grown to, why it's so shiny. And, it takes a lot of people losing money to keep the lights on. So Priscilla says it's a fever. Michael's not even a gambler, but when we go, he's on the machines like crazy. Edward says, I remember one night in Vegas, I walked into the casino with no intention of gambling. Well, the next thing I know, it was 7:30 in the morning, and I had cashed every check in my checkbook. Still, I can't wait to go back. When I do, I'm going to bring a lot of money. All it takes is 2 glasses of wine, and then I lose my... Priscilla says, cool. Lose your cool. So for those of you that don't really realize when Priscilla and Michael Edwards got together, they dated between 1978 and 1984. After they broke up, he wrote a book called Priscilla, Elvis, and Me in 1988, in which he admitted to being attracted to Priscilla's daughter, Lisa. So anyways, Edward says, yep, that's it. I lose my cool. Priscilla finally had to leave me there. Her final words were, you're hopeless. Priscilla says, I think you get a little cocky. You start winning, and then you take chances. So Michael, just to kind of a little background on him, he was in the Marines, and he trained on Paris Island. He was a TV model, appearing in commercials and magazines. He was actually played a little bit opposite of Tuesday Weld, who was with Elvis in his movie Wild in the Country, in a movie called Play It As It Lays in 1972. All right, so let's continue. Priscilla says, Michael and I just came back from Samoa. Warhol says, did you bring your Polaroid camera? And Priscilla says, oh, yes. And everybody we saw wanted us to take their picture. Villela says, is that where Brando has his estate? Priscilla says, well, I thought that was Tahiti. Samoa is probably one of the last Polynesian countries to remain somewhat primitive. I couldn't believe it. Priscilla says, we were literally living in Sarone, and we were washing fish and vegetables actually in the ocean. We got totally immersed in the culture. Michael says we slept in those little mosquito net huts. Priscilla, tell everyone about the village. So we're going to stop right here and stay tuned for part 2, which is coming later on today. Please like, please subscribe in the comments. She definitely does cover Elvis in this. I'm going to cover the whole interview, and we're going to do that in probably 3 or 4 parts since this interview is a bit long.